I think he'll change. He is committed of his own level of service, and that will remain true.
Prince William. Calm, measured, and beloved by millions, he had long been the monarchy's steady hand, the bridge between past and future. For years, he played the part perfectly, attending engagements with his wife Catherine, supporting his father King Charles, keeping the family's public image intact. But that morning, something in his eyes betrayed a deeper intensity. He wasn't just fulfilling royal duty anymore. He was preparing to deliver a reckoning. As courtiers lined the hall and foreign dignitaries exchanged hushed observations, the golden aura of royal tradition began to blur with an uneasy sense of suspense. Camilla, Queen Consort, sat quietly beside King Charles, her posture upright, her expression calm. Yet her fingers, folded tightly in her lap, hinted at tension. Whispers had already spread. Days earlier, Prince William had requested to speak publicly during the ceremony, an unprecedented move for such a tightly choreographed occasion. In a family where every breath is timed, every word rehearsed, this sudden request raised alarm. William hadn't shared details. Even the king's closest advisors seemed unaware of what was coming. Some believed it was a speech in honor of tradition. Others feared it would be a declaration of change. What no one expected was the magnitude of what William was about to unleash, not just on the monarchy, but on the woman seated just feet away from him. As Prince William stood, the noise in the room evaporated. The scrape of his chair against marble echoed like thunder. For one suspended moment, the world stopped turning. Cameras zoomed in. Guests froze mid-breath. Queen Camilla glanced sideways, her lips tightening. King Charles tilted his head toward his son, brows drawn slightly in confusion. Every eye in the palace was fixed on William. And then he spoke. As the room held its breath, Prince William stepped forward, ready to redefine the monarchy. With Durtidunium, voice steady yet charged, Prince William unveiled a vision that would shake the royal foundation. No opening fanfare, no drawn-out formalities, just words that cut through centuries of tradition like a blade. Today, he began, we celebrate more than our legacy. We prepare for the future. The room, cloaked in ceremonial stillness, hung on every syllable. In that moment, William was no longer simply the Duke of Cambridge. He became something more, an agent of change in a monarchy long defined by its resistance to it. Then came the seismic shift. With his father's blessing, William declared a new structure, one that echoed the concept of a quasi-regency. Not an abdication, not a dethroning, but a deliberate redistribution of power, calculated and undeniable. From that day forward, William would take on expanded duties, overseeing diplomatic relations, leading the newly formed Royal Advisory Council, and spearheading the monarchy's international presence. The move was framed with grace and respect, but the subtext was deafening. The next era had begun, and he was at its helm. He spoke of relevance, of modernization, of how the crown must no longer hover above the people, but walk beside them. That royal authority must evolve, not rest solely on heritage, but on humility, service, and trust. He named key figures in this transformation. Princess Anne, the monarchy's steadiest hand, would oversee institutional reforms. Prince Edward would focus on Commonwealth engagement. Catherine, Princess of Wales, would champion mental health, education, and family advocacy. One by one, roles were clarified. The vision was bold. It was inclusive. But one name was missing: Queen Camilla. As William continued, articulating a streamlined, forward-facing monarchy built around public service and modern values, the omission grew louder. Camilla, who had spent years clawing her way from controversy into legitimacy, had been left out of the new royal equation. Not a single mention, not a role, not a function, nothing. Her decades of reinvention, her work beside King Charles, erased with silence. For a woman who had been scrutinized, challenged, and finally accepted, it was a quiet exile delivered under the guise of progress. The audience, trained in stoicism, struggled to maintain composure. Some exchanged glances. A few aides stiffened. Even King Charles, seated beside Camilla, appeared frozen in a moment of disbelief. But the speech didn't pause. William, composed and relentless, continued to outline his vision, confident, articulate, and measured, but unmistakably authoritative. It wasn't a rebellion. It was a coronation in everything but name. The power dynamics were shifting before everyone's eyes, and as William concluded his speech, the air in the room had thickened into something else: uncertainty, unease, even awe. The applause came late. It was hesitant, cautious, as if the audience knew they were no longer part of the same monarchy they'd arrived to celebrate. Amidst the shifting dynamics, Queen Camilla's composed facade began to crumble. In a moment that stunned the world, Queen Camilla's strength gave way under the weight of change. What began as a carefully orchestrated celebration of continuity was shattered by an unexpected collapse that no one could have prepared for, not the palace staff, not the press, not even those closest to her. Just minutes after Prince William's explosive declaration, Camilla's face drained of color. Her shoulders slumped. Her lips parted slightly, as though the oxygen in the room had suddenly been pulled away. She clutched the armrest beside her, eyes distant, breath shallow. There was no outburst, no dramatic cry, just a quiet unraveling in plain view of the world's cameras. The first to react was a nearby aide, who leaned in with urgency, alerting others before rising to call for medical assistance. King Charles, usually the embodiment of restraint, rose in alarm. His voice, hoarse with panic, broke through the stunned silence. Camilla, pale and unresponsive, leaned forward as if her very body could no longer bear the invisible blow just delivered by her stepson's speech. Princess Anne swiftly gestured to royal medics stationed discreetly nearby. Catherine instinctively shielded her children, and William, just steps from the podium, turned back toward the dais, his face unreadable but tense. Within moments, paramedics emerged from behind the velvet-draped curtains. The crowd, frozen in disbelief, parted to let them through. What had been a royal pageant became something else entirely. A crisis, unfolding before the eyes of global dignitaries and the relentless lens of the media. Camilla was carefully eased onto a stretcher, her breathing faint, her body motionless. The flowers that once seemed decorative now looked funereal. The royal banners lost their meaning. The choreography of tradition had fallen apart. News of her collapse spread instantly. Clips of the incident were shared across every platform. Television broadcasts interrupted their regular programming. TikTok was flooded with slowed-down videos capturing the exact second her body gave out. And Twitter erupted with hashtags: Camilla collapse, Windsor shock, royal reckoning. Some expressed concern, others speculated. But what dominated the conversation was the symbolism, the idea that her fall wasn't merely physical, but representative of something far deeper within the institution itself. Speculation spread like wildfire. Was it a heart attack? A panic attack? A stress-induced fainting spell? Clarence House released a swift statement claiming Her Majesty had experienced a brief dizzy spell due to emotional strain. But the official language did little to silence whispers echoing within palace halls. Those close to the royal household admitted privately that Camilla had been under growing pressure in recent months. Her schedule had been reduced, her public appearances fewer, her presence quietly minimized. She had sensed it, felt it, and now the entire world saw the moment it all caught up to her. This was no ordinary health scare. It was a collapse laced with consequence. The Queen Consort, long seen as the steady anchor beside Charles, was unraveling at the very center of royal power. And as the Queen was tended to, questions about the monarchy's future loomed large. From humble beginnings to the heart of the monarchy, Camilla's path was anything but ordinary. Born into a family of modest aristocratic connections, she wasn't. Raised with the expectation of wearing a crown. Her early life unfolded in the English countryside, surrounded by tradition but untouched by royal protocol. There was no roadmap, no royal tutors, no heralds guiding her toward destiny. Yet somehow, Camilla would find herself entangled in a story that would reshape the face of the British monarchy, one steeped in scandal, redemption, and ruthless public judgment. When she first met Prince Charles in the early 1970s, their chemistry was immediate. They shared a love of horses, books, dry humor, and a private connection few understood. But the monarchy wasn't built for emotions. It was built for optics. Camilla didn't have the untouched image the palace sought for the future king. Instead, she had a past, a previous relationship, and a reputation that didn't fit the fairy tale mold. Charles was pressured to walk away, and so began a love story defined not by weddings and parades, but by years of longing, secrecy, and relentless public scrutiny. That public scrutiny only intensified after Charles married Diana. Camilla, once a private woman, was cast into the global spotlight as the villain in a royal tragedy. The media labeled her a homewrecker. The public branded her unforgivable. While Charles continued royal duties under a veil of public sympathy, Camilla was left to weather a cultural storm that showed no mercy. Her name became a punchline. Her presence sparked outrage. For over a decade, she lived in the shadows, silenced by the institution, ignored by its defenders, and ridiculed by a public unwilling to forgive. But history has a strange way of shifting, and so did the narrative. Following Diana's tragic death, the palace cautiously began to reintroduce Camilla to public life. Not as a mistress, but as a partner. Quietly, she began attending official engagements, gradually earning a new kind of presence within royal circles. Her marriage to Charles in 2005 wasn't met with universal applause, but it marked the beginning of her slow transformation from scandal to stability. It wasn't about charm. It wasn't about charisma. It was about consistency. She showed up. She did the work. And slowly, the world noticed. Behind closed doors, Camilla became a key figure in supporting Charles through personal and professional struggles. She championed causes that lacked royal glamour, like domestic abuse awareness and literacy programs. She embraced the roles that required compassion over cameras. And she proved, over time, that she wasn't there for a title. She was there because she believed in duty. Still, acceptance was never complete. Whispers remained. Headlines resurfaced. The specter of Diana loomed over every public appearance, every magazine cover, every passing remark. Her rise to Queen Consort wasn't a moment of triumph. It was a reminder of how far she'd come and how far she still had to go to truly belong. She had fought her way into the institution, but the spotlight never softened. If anything, it sharpened. Every misstep was amplified. Every silence was interpreted. And now, with the monarchy once again on shifting ground, Camilla stands at a crossroads. Because while the world saw a woman collapse in public, what led to that moment was a lifetime spent climbing uphill through storms of doubt, resistance, and judgment. Camilla's journey set the stage for the complexities she faces in the evolving monarchy. Prince William's vision signaled a new era, challenging centuries of tradition. What unfolded on that historic day wasn't just a change in leadership, it was a recalibration of monarchy itself. In one speech, William dismantled the unspoken rules that had governed royal power for generations. The monarchy, long revered for its permanence, was being forced to confront its place in a world that no longer bowed automatically. And at the heart of it all stood a prince who didn't just inherit duty, he redefined it. The structural overhaul was as unexpected as it was strategic. William proposed a leaner, more agile monarchy, one where influence wasn't reserved for those born into privilege, but earned through service and merit. Gone were the days of bloated ceremonial titles and outdated hierarchy. In their place, a new blueprint emerged. Princess Anne, known for her relentless work ethic, would oversee constitutional and institutional affairs. Prince Edward would extend Britain's hand across the Commonwealth, nurturing frayed alliances with a sense of pragmatism rather than pageantry. And Catherine, now a global symbol of grace and resilience, would lead the charge in youth outreach and mental health reform, two areas she had long championed but was now given full reign over. What made this shift radical wasn't just who was. Included, it was who wasn't. Queen Camilla, once expected to hold court beside Charles, was entirely left out of this future vision. There was no mention of her duties, her legacy, or her role moving forward. It wasn't a mistake. It was a message. William's monarchy would not be built on royal favoritism or tradition-bound appointments. It would reflect the world outside. The palace gates a world demanding transparency, relevance, and change. And the message, landed hard. Within hours of the announcement, global media erupted. Newspapers hailed the dawn of a new royal age. Political commentators dissected every line, every pause, every omission. Was this Charles's decision? Or had William taken the reins with quiet authority, setting the course himself? In Parliament, even elected officials took note. For decades, debates over the monarchy's role had simmered beneath the surface. Now, with William stepping forward as a modern figurehead, even the skeptics were forced to reevaluate their stance. But the praise wasn't universal. Traditionalists balked. Some saw the announcement as a power grab, cloaked in idealism. Others warned that by stripping away historic structure, William risked severing the monarchy from its foundational identity. Yet even those voices, loud as they were, couldn't drown out the rising tide of support. Social media exploded with approval. Younger generations, often indifferent to royal matters, suddenly paid attention. Hashtags trended globally. Memes hailed William and Catherine as the monarchy's reset button. For the first time in years, the royal family didn't feel like an artifact. It felt like a force. Still, behind the scenes, the cost of this evolution was beginning to show. Change, no matter how noble, demands sacrifice. The same people praised on paper were still human fragile under pressure, exhausted by expectation. The palace was evolving, yes, but not without casualties. As the monarchy adapts, the personal toll on its members becomes increasingly evident. Beyond the public eye, health crises and personal struggles test the royal family's resilience. While Buckingham Palace continues to project an image of poise and control, behind its historic walls, a wave of vulnerability has quietly swept through its most senior figures. The collapse of Queen Camilla wasn't an isolated incident, it was a culmination of weeks, perhaps months, of growing internal strain. In private, aides had whispered of persistent fatigue. Her recent bout with pneumonia had left her physically weakened, and those close to her admitted she'd never fully bounced back. Her schedule had been quietly trimmed, and there were days when she simply disappeared from the public eye, replaced by vague statements about rest or prior commitments. And she wasn't the only one fighting an invisible battle. Charles, the monarch who ascended the throne with such hope and promise, now faces the relentless grip of cancer. Though the palace insists his treatments are progressing well, insiders tell a different story. He's thinner. His presence, though determined, carries a weight of exhaustion. His public engagements have been scaled back significantly, replaced by pre-recorded messages and soft appearances that barely scratch the surface of his former vigor. Behind every photo of the king smiling for the cameras is a man grappling with mortality, and with the fear that his time to shape the crown may be shorter than anyone expected. And then there's Princess Kate, a symbol of elegance, strength, and stability in the public's eyes. But in private, she has been enduring a grueling recovery from chemotherapy, a battle kept from the spotlight until it could no longer be hidden. She has leaned on her family, particularly William, for support, but the toll has been steep. Her absence from major events sent shockwaves through the press, fueling speculation. When her diagnosis was finally revealed, it stunned the nation. She had chosen to suffer in silence, not for pride, but to protect her children and preserve the dignity of her role. These simultaneous health battles have had a profound impact on the workings of the monarchy. With so many senior members physically sidelined, the burden of responsibility has fallen squarely on Prince William's shoulders. He is now not just the heir, but the engine keeping the monarchy running. State meetings, foreign relations, public representation all now hinge on him and Catherine, even as they both navigate their own personal storms. This isn't just about duty anymore, it's about endurance, it's about survival. And while the public may see polished statements and curated appearances, within the palace, the emotional toll is undeniable. Staff speak of tension in the corridors. Advisors walk on eggshells. Family dynamics, already fraught with pressure, have become more delicate. The crown may sparkle in public, but it feels heavy in private. Every hospital visit, every hushed update from doctors is a reminder that behind the grandeur is a family grappling with the same fears, uncertainties, and heartbreaks as any other. Amidst these personal battles, the monarchy's public image faces unprecedented scrutiny. The royal family's trials played out on a global stage, fueling debates and divisions. Queen Camilla's collapse wasn't just a medical emergency, it became a cultural spectacle. Within minutes, the footage was everywhere. On morning shows, late-night panels, viral TikToks, and sensational YouTube thumbnails. It wasn't just the sight of a royal figure crumbling under pressure that captivated the public, it was what it symbolized. The Queen Consort, collapsing mere moments after Prince William's historic announcement, sent a message that no palace spokesperson could control. The old world was cracking, and everyone was watching it happen in real time. The press pounced. Headlines ranged from brutally direct to carefully diplomatic. Some framed it as a health scare, others as a royal meltdown. Columnists debated whether Camilla had been pushed too far, blindsided by decisions made without her consent. Others praised William's bold leadership, calling his speech the most progressive gesture from the royal family in decades. But what no one could deny was that the monarchy, once protected by layers of protocol and privacy, had been laid bare. The image of strength and unity had fractured live, unscripted, and unfiltered. Online, the response was even more divided and far more brutal. Twitter became a battlefield. Supporters of Camilla called the treatment she received unjust, accusing the royal institution of sidelining her after years of dedication. But younger audiences saw it differently. To them, this was long overdue. TikTok was flooded with edits casting William and Catherine as the future, with hashtags like #NextGenRoyals and Monarchy Reboot gaining millions of views. In sharp contrast, clips of Camilla were spliced with outdated headlines, painting her as a symbol of a fading era. The internet didn't just watch the collapse, it reinterpreted it, reframed it, and weaponized it. The monarchy found itself caught in a storm it couldn't steer. Every word, every silence, every photo was dissected. Was Charles complicit in William's sudden rise? Had Camilla been excluded intentionally? Were Anne and Edward informed? Analysts were called in to interpret the palace's every move. But even seasoned royal correspondents admitted they'd never seen anything like it. The comparisons came quickly. This was the biggest crisis since Diana's infamous BBC interview, since Harry and Meghan's departure, even since the abdication of Edward V. But unlike those moments, this wasn't driven by rebellion from the outside, it was an implosion from within. And what that revealed was damning. The monarchy had survived centuries of war, scandal, and scrutiny. But now, in a digital age where control is an illusion and narratives are built in seconds, its survival depended on transparency and relevance. Two things the institution has historically resisted. This wasn't just about Camilla's health or William's speech. It was about what the crown still meant in a world that questions everything. As the public raged, sympathized, speculated, and celebrated, the royal family remained mostly silent. A carefully worded statement here, a brief appearance there, none of it enough to calm the storm. Because the truth was already out. And as opinions swirl, the monarchy stands at a crossroads, contemplating its next steps. In the wake of upheaval, the path forward for the monarchy remains uncertain, yet filled with potential. Prince William's declaration didn't just signal a momentary shift, it redrew the power lines of a 1,000-year-old institution. With Charles's quiet nod of approval, William now carries the burden of reshaping the crown for a world that no longer grants loyalty blindly. His expanded role is not ceremonial, it is strategic. He is no longer waiting in the wings. He is leading from the front, defining what it means to be royal in an age where relevance is earned, not inherited. This shift, however, casts a long shadow over Queen Camilla's future. Once ridiculed, later redeemed, and eventually crowned. Beside Charles, she had fought every inch of her journey. But in this new framework, she's conspicuously absent. The woman who once stood at the king's side now finds herself watching from the margins. Some insiders speculate that her role may quietly diminish into something akin to Prince Philip's later years, a figure of internal support rather than public prominence. Others wonder if her collapse was not just exhaustion, but the devastating realization that the crown she finally wore may be slipping from her grasp. And as for King Charles, his health remains the silent variable looming over every plan. Cancer doesn't wait for politics, and the strain of balancing treatment with duty is already visible in his reduced engagements and guarded appearances. If his condition worsens, succession may come not with ceremony, but necessity. And in that scenario, William's soft regency becomes something far more permanent. The kingdom may soon find itself not just honoring a legacy, but ushering in a full transformation, one guided by a prince-turned-patriarch long before the official title is passed down. In response to all of this, the monarchy is quietly re-engineering its relationship with the public. Initiatives aimed at transparency, mental health, youth empowerment, and digital presence are not just press strategies, they are survival tactics. The institution knows it must shed its untouchable mystique to remain meaningful in a world driven by connection and accountability. William and Catherine are the faces of that strategy, relatable, modern, yet unmistakably royal. Their authenticity, real or crafted, is working. Polls show rising support, particularly among younger generations who once dismissed the crown as a relic of the past. But the heart of the issue remains. How far can a monarchy modernize before it stops being a monarchy at all? That question lingers in every interview, every speech, every reform. William walks a tightrope between tradition and transformation, legacy and leadership. And Camilla's collapse, Charles's illness, and Kate's quiet battle with cancer serve as stark reminders that beneath the pageantry are people flawed, fragile, and fighting to hold an empire together. The stakes are no longer ceremonial, they're existential. The monarchy must evolve or risk fading into irrelevance. The crown's evolution continues, shaped by the trials and triumphs of its bearers. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.